Merry Christmas from Demeech.
PD365. Hey everybody, it's me, PD Peterson here, and I know that we have a discussion to talk about, but let me talk about my favorite game of the year, which is Mario Strikers Battle League. Now, it was snubbed at the Game Awards. It wasn't even nominated for anything because Jeff Keighley's a hack, but we don't even talk about that. So let's talk about the updates that we got. Now, I know that a lot of people say that the game didn't have a lot of content, but it actually did if you have a Galaxy Big Brain. I mean, think about it. You get nothing at launch, and then you get free updates later on to satisfy yourself. I mean, I've never felt more satisfied in my life. I mean, Diddy Kong, Shy Guy, Daisy. This is better than Smash Brothers. Oh, and don't even get me started with Update 3, where we have literally Birdo and Bowser Jr. Oh, man, I can't wait to change my profile picture to Birdo. Oh, man, that's going to be awesome. Now, there's more to talk about with this. So, of course, the discussion will now talk about Mario Strikers Battle League instead of Nintendo's 2022 in review, because this is the only game that matters this year. Am I right, Demeech?
Are you okay? Like, I'm listening to what you're saying, and none of it is comprehensible except for the Jeff Keighley thing, but you do realize that you said better than Smash? What? Because you really love Shy Guy and Birdo?
I relate to Shy Guy on a personal level. And Birdo, I don't know, man.
Me personally this, me personally that. Dude, how have you not realized that this is not a good thing? How many videos, how many community posts, how many rants do I need to do for you to understand that this is not a good thing?
Well, me personally, if the egg comes out of the mouth, that's pretty interesting to me.
Of course it is. And aren't you the guy who said, "Oh, I love to listen to Bowser Jr. screaming before I go to bed"?
I do! I love listening to Bowser Jr. screaming before I go to bed.
Oh, and that's also your alarm clock sound, because I go to bed, and I can hear it all the way from miles away, and I hear, "Ah, good morning, Baltimore! Look at this, Bowser Jr.'s waking me up!" But, dude, please, there are other games to play. Please do me a favor and actually find some good games to play.
Listen, it's not my fault you don't like Birdo's stinky mouth on a soccer ball.
Alright, I think that's enough of PD. Where's T&D? Because this is not a PD discussion.
Please.
I know you've wanted to have them, but considering you do a lot of talking but don't say anything, I don't think that's possible. T&D, please get this bird out of here.
Alright, everyone, this has been PD365. See ya! What the heck is PD365?
I really couldn't tell you that. I thought PDSAs were enough, but it seems like he's doing all kinds of shows, yet none of them are catching on. Alright, guys. All PD aside, we wanted to do a discussion about Nintendo's 2022 for quite some time. This has been a discussion I've been very excited to do for quite a while, and I think a good way to start things off is just by saying Mario Tennis Aces is about to look like Game of the Year, because oh my goodness, this has been a wild year to say the least. And from here, I think a good idea would just be discussing, just our current stance on the Switch and just overall, how are you feeling about the system 6 years later almost?
I think it's on its way out, honestly. And I think we'll talk about that later on in the discussion, but I feel like the Switch has slowed down so much in terms of first-party games coming out. I mean, they don't need to come out with like a lot of games per year, but you can definitely tell that there's prioritization elsewhere. And we could also see that the Switch's hardware is greatly outdated to the point where it's really quite embarrassing. And I don't know if developers are going to keep downgrading their games just so that I could play on the Switch. So Honestly, I've only been playing my Switch when it's been convenient for me, but there also haven't been a lot of games that I've been interested in this year, so
Well,
it's been
considering you are
collecting a lot of
clearly
dust
some
as
guy
well.
who doesn't like Nintendo, according to Cody,
Yeah, I mean,
obviously
yeah,
that's
I
the
mean,
case.
look, if somebody plops themselves on the couch with like a overly tight leather jacket, then you gotta listen to them.
Obviously, he knows what he's talking about. But, with that being said, I have had the Switch since launch day. You've had it very soon after. I think you got it the Sunday after launch, so I'm only 2 days ahead of
Yeah.
you there, man. But, just with the Switch overall, I feel like, yeah, I agree, things are slowing down now. And when it comes to games this year, there were more games that I was excited for, but I think I'm at a point where, just like with the Switch in general, I do agree that it's underpowered. I think this is a more noticeable issue now, considering that games are getting larger in scale. And it was outdated when it released in 2017, but it's more glaring now, and I feel like developers are going to have a harder time putting games on it. Now, to be fair, when it comes to Nintendo consoles, you usually don't get them for third-party games. But with the Switch, I feel like it's a little bit different of a case compared to something like their prior consoles, because there have been a lot of good third-party games on the system. In fact, many of them released this year, a lot of the great games, were third-party. In fact, I would say that during 2018, it was third-party games that carried that year until Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But I do feel like the issues with
I
the
would agree with
hardware
that.
are more glaring now, but overall, do I feel satisfied with the Switch, considering it's been out for so long? Do I feel like it has the amount of games that I'd like? Are a lot of the series I like represented? And the answer to that question, it definitely has been better than some other years. It's good to know that we're finally getting Pikmin 4. We probably will be getting a new Donkey Kong. We're not sure about that. Nothing's been confirmed, but you don't have a theme park and a big role in a movie to do nothing with the series. That just doesn't make sense, even for Nintendo
Yeah,
standards. And there have been a
yeah.
lot of games that I played on it, and still, I do have an Xbox Series X, but I feel like I play my Switch more, mainly because, Nintendo is a big part of the channel, and there are just more games on the Switch that I've been playing recently that are either exclusive to it or I just wanted to get it on the Switch. Again, the portability is a nice factor about it. Pac-Man World Repack actually runs very well. It's definitely not a taxing game on hardware, but I got it for the Switch over the Series X because I could bring it on the go, and wouldn't you know it, I did play it on a nice little weekend getaway. So that has been a good
Yeah.
aspect about it, and we'll definitely talk about the games that we did enjoy this year. But as I said, 2022 has been a very bizarre and crazy year for the Switch in more ways than imaginable. But I feel like a good place to start off would be with some of the strengths and positives of the year, because there definitely were some good aspects about this year. And a lot of it is due to some of the games released, but, it was good in aspects where, just the games released when they were good, they were ridiculously good. It wasn't stuff that was just like, oh, it's good, but nothing amazing, because there have definitely been some incredible games. So I feel a good place to start off would be starting off the year in January. Pokemon Legends Arceus released, and I gotta be honest, I really haven't played much of the game, but considering the overall reception has been positive for the game, that's definitely a good thing, and I'm glad that they tried something new for Pokemon, and it resonated with so many people. I'm gonna go back to the game, but, with Pokemon in general, and this is definitely going to be a persistent issue, it's just exhausting, the amount of games that they release, and me personally, I was just fatigued with the series, and when Legends Arceus came out, it's just like I think I had enough Pokemon where I just really couldn't get into it.
Yeah, I mean, all I've heard was that Legends Arceus was like received very well, and I thought, I was even telling you like maybe this will be like a good year for Nintendo. I'm not exactly a Pokemon fan, so like it didn't really tell me anything either way. But I mean, it had been a while since Pokemon fans unanimously said like, "Oh, this is pretty good."
Yeah, that or with Pokemon, I like to have you on the discussions because you're sort of an outsider. So it is cool hearing your thoughts on it and what you've just noticed. But I do agree with you there that yeah, it's good that they did something new that resonated a lot. It's good that it's actually a good game. And although I really didn't play much of it, I wouldn't have to wait much longer for a game that I would just absolutely love, and that is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I've wanted Kirby to go into 3D for the longest time, and I know you've been saying that Kirby really needs to try something new, even since the 3DS days, and it absolutely delivered. How much of Kirby and the Forgotten Land did you play?
I think I got up to the Lava World.
Yeah, you're almost towards the end of the game.
Yeah, so I'm almost done with it. I like play it in intervals. Just because, like, I like the game a lot. I think it's a great step for Kirby. But I don't think I don't think I loved it as much as you did or like other people did, and it has nothing to do with the game being bad. It's just like, I don't know, it just didn't keep my interest for that long. But yeah, it's a great step forward, really well designed game.
It's a step in the right
Really
direction.
fun locations. Like another Super Mario Party type game. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, and I think it's a really well-designed, well-crafted game. Yeah, I don't really have any problems with it. I just think it's pretty good. I don't love it as much as other people do, though.
So you would say that it is pretty good, you had a good time with it, but it just didn't resonate with you like some other games do?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. But I'm really glad that Kirby fans get like something truly special. Because I do think it's been a while. I know Robobot was special, but I don't think it was. I think Forgotten Land was another level. It was another tier.
Oh, absolutely. And the two games are platformers. One's 2D, one's 3D. I still love Kirby Planet Robobot. I would consider it to be the best 2D Kirby game and the second best Kirby game, but the thing is, it really needed to step up because with Kirby Star Allies, going back to the game, revisiting it this year because I did a retrospective of it, the game itself, the problem with that game isn't that it was unfinished like many thought, because that is a game where now I can confidently say it's not unfinished even though it did get updates. The entire experience was just underwhelming and it just didn't have much to it. The level locations were bland. The level design wasn't good. There's a lot of empty space. There's not much going on. And it just felt very play it safe. And for the first HD Kirby game, other than Rainbow Curse, it just it wasn't serviceable. And going back to the game, I just realized that, Star Allies is just not a good game. I know people like it, but me personally, I just didn't. And I will stand on that hill, but going to Forgotten Land was just incredible. Not because it's better than Star Allies, that's a very easy feat to do. Because it's just an overall incredible experience. They did excellent bringing Kirby into 3D for the first time. There was definitely concern about, how could it work in 3D considering he can, hover around the entire area. But they did a good job just perfecting the movement. The copy abilities are so much fun to use. The locations, it's just, everything about the game is near perfection. And I absolutely adore the game. I will say that I do think it's objectively the best designed Nintendo game, and it's definitely one of my favorites. I will say Super Mario Odyssey still has the edge as my favorite game of all time, but looking at things from a more critical, objective standpoint, I definitely will say that Forgotten Land has some better game design, especially with the bosses. Oh my gosh, the bosses are so much fun in the game, and the characters are so fun too. You got, anytime that there is a gorilla character, I'm automatically going to be very happy. But I think Silly Dillo was also hilarious to include. A lot of it reminded me of Crash Bandicoot. And, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I have absolutely nothing but positive things to say about it. It's hard to think of anything I didn't like about the game. Sure, it's at 30 frames per second, but just looking at the game and just the positives overall, they completely outweigh any gripes I might have with the game. And also another thing, Elephant is adorable. Kirby has a chinchilla companion, and that just makes the game even better, considering I do have a chinchilla, and she is adorable. And I will say that Elephant is definitely more obedient, and doesn't run around the stage and, acts like a chinchilla.
I mean, it would be nice if we had Switch games running at 60 frames. hint, hint, nudge, nudge for a topic we'll talk about later on.
With Kirby fans really just had it made this year. They had a lot to eat, quite literally, because we got Kirby's Dream Buffet in the summer, which is a really fun and surprising game. I was not expecting another Kirby game, and it's a fun little eShop game. They don't really do that much anymore. With Nintendo, they used to do that on the Wii, DSi, 3DS, and Wii U mostly.
3DS.
Where they had the little eShop games, but it's nice to see it back. And considering just the quality of that game, it does still run at 30 frames per second, but I do think that now that's just mainly an issue with the hardware itself and not developer ambition, because like I said, games are getting larger and they want to include more things, but they just can't because the hardware is outdated. But that was another fun surprise. I had a lot of fun with it. It's a game I haven't gone back to in a while, considering that, yeah, it is a little more on a basic level, but it's something I could easily see myself going back to, you know, doing tournaments on the channel and live streams, things along the lines of that. And overall, very fun game and a nice surprise. I will say that's dessert to the fine meal that was Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And good news for Kirby fans, we have even more to look forward to next year with Kirby's return to Dreamland Deluxe. And this is an actual remake, which I'm very excited for.
Yeah. I think I forgot to mention, though, before we hit the big boys, there was a DLC that came out that you made a whole 180 on. Should we talk about that first?
Yes! Well, the thing is, it took a while, but we finally got it. Switch Sports Golf! Okay, not yet. Not yet. But we'll get there. No, the Mario Kart DLC. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's good that you brought that up, because that was another surprise of the year. So with the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, when it was first revealed, I was very critical towards it, and the first wave was not good. I would say it was borderline bad. I'm curious to know what your thoughts were when it was revealed, and just, you know, everything surrounding it, because you and I have been friends even before Mario Kart 8 released. And going through all these years with Mario Kart 8, and then after nearly a decade, all we get is DLC for an existing game that we've been playing for so many years and we're sick of. Personally, I was disappointed. And I thought, this is just going to be more tracks for Mario Kart, nothing exciting about it. The tracks also visually look appalling.
Well, I remember the announcement where I was like, yeah, of course they would. Of course they would update a game that's already out instead of making a new one. But I think what pissed me off the most, at least during the moment, and I think you were too, was that we found out that most of the tracks were ripped straight from Mario Kart Tour. And visually, it showed, because they didn't have quite the amount of fidelity that the Mario Kart 8, regular tracks did. Base tracks did. And, that had me worried, because that made me think, well, this is being done for cheap.
On the cheap.
I don't know and I don't know if it's worth my money, to be honest. People were excited for it and stuff, and I can't take that away from people, because to be honest, like, any new Mario Kart content, like, to be honest, I would take too. But
oh, I know you were over the moon for Mario Kart Live Home Circuit and Mario Kart Tour.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've been excited for anything Mario Kart, to be quite honest. But yeah,
have you checked
I think
out
our
the
first
tracks
impression.
Yet?
I haven't yet, but I am going to soon, because I'm getting a Switch Online membership. But what I was going to say was that I think initially our reactions to the DLC was very not good, because I think you and I both want Mario Kart 9, but I have a theory as to why it's not Mario Kart 9, and it ties into, like, the Switch dying out. At least, like, the current iteration, but we could talk about that later. But
yeah,
let's talk about your 180 with the DLC pack.
and it all starts with anti-gravity. So yeah, I will say that initially when it was revealed in that direct, I was very disappointed. And yeah, like we said, the tracks visually did not look good because they were ripped from Tor. And I am one who is actually not obsessed with graphics as some might think. In fact, I don't even have a 4K TV. In my room, my primary TV is just 1080p and I'm perfectly happy with that. It also has a component cable thing set up so I can play the Wii, so I'm very happy about that because a lot of modern TVs don't. But, you know, with the first wave, going into that, it was underwhelming. I didn't like it. The Tor tracks were great, but let's take a look at the other ones. We got some of the most boring tracks in the entire Mario Kart series, and nothing was done to make them interesting. Toad's Circuit and Shroom Ridge instantly come to mind, and considering that they really didn't do anything to make those better, and just visually how they did not look good, they don't look good. They look like crap, and they played like crap. And considering Nintendo really didn't outline any of the future DLC and just my overall thoughts on Nintendo during this time, I thought the DLC was just going to remain consistent to Wave 1. But there is a big key thing with that DLC. I think it's actually funny to talk about how I got the DLC in the first place and how I was convinced about it. So, I was not very happy about it, but then I think I was at work on a lunch break preparing myself some shrimp ramen. And then I get a phone call from Starchronics where he's telling me about the tracks and stuff, and he said something along the lines of, "Did I mention Tor tracks?" And I said something along the lines before, "I don't want to get this, I don't really..." Tor tracks? Sign me up! And the good news is that the only good tracks from Wave 1 were the Mario Kart Tour City tracks and Ninja Hideaway, but, you know, going on from there, I was not very excited, especially with Wave 2. I couldn't care less at the time, but then I played Wave 2. And I started to see some major improvement. There were still some iffy tracks, but I think where everything took a 180 is just with Wave 3, which, oh my goodness. Wave 3 is incredible. And considering I wasn't keen on the idea of playing Mario Kart tracks in Mario Kart 8, which is already a game I've played for many years, you know, considering the circumstances, I think they did an excellent job with the new tracks. They included half pipes. Visually, most of them look beautiful. And even Rock Rock Mountain, even though it's visually not on par, it's still a great track. And with things like the Custom Item Edition, I gotta say that with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the DLC, I'm honestly excited for it now, and I'm pleasantly surprised how much has improved. And the thing is, if there wasn't the criticism, Nintendo probably wouldn't do this. So for any of the shills or fanboys out there saying stuff like, there are two kinds of people: those who enjoy the highly unrivaled gameplay of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and those obsessed with the visual quality of the grass, guess which ones have happier lives? Well, now I can confidently answer that question. The ones with happier lives are the ones who are playing Merry Mountain in all its glory, looking beautiful as ever, and including some anti-gravity. So I think in this round, I am so glad Nintendo listened to the feedback, and it's actually exciting playing these tracks, and I'm having fun doing tournaments. I hope that we get some new characters as well, because Mario Kart 8's roster has always been an issue. This is even in 8 Deluxe, because not counting any of the guest characters or the Koopalings, there are no new Mario characters outside of Baby Rosalina and Pink Gold Peach. And considering your thoughts on regular Rosalina, I don't even want to know what you think of Baby Rosalina. Yeah, all the characters in the world. And then, that's what you think. I think the reaction for Pink Gold Peach would be more like, But back then, you had the question of, why is Pink Gold Peach a character instead of, why are there no characters? Something is starting to stink, and I don't think it's the Limburger cheese. But these are definitely some positive aspects of the year. And there are a few more, mostly third-party, including another gluttonous game character, but curious to know your thoughts on the DLC as of now.
It looks really cool. I'm actually more interested in it now. I'm a sucker for Christmas stuff, so Merry Mountain, like, got my attention right away. I never played any of the Mario Kart Tour stuff. As people who have been on the channel for a long time here know, I don't like Mario Kart Tour.
What do you like?
So, Doritos?
Good point. What kind are we talking about? Are we talking about nacho cheese, spicy nacho, Cool Ranch, sweet spicy chili That one's also good.
That's a good one too.
The rare
But I
taco
think,
flavor, you got to try that if you haven't.
oh, I gotta try that one. But I think overall, like, if I'm saying like I'm gonna get Switch Online's expansion pass, for it's not just for me, but it's for everyone else in my family. Um, for to play the DLC pack to play online with not only you but like everyone else, I think that says something. And also, I'm a big sucker for Peach Gardens and Waluigi Pinball. So
Waluigi
yeah,
Pinball
and
I can
also
see, but I'm surprised Peach Gardens.
yeah, I mean I'm a very big Mario Kart DS fan, but I yeah, and also everyone has Mario Kart, and you know it'll be fun to like jump back into the game again with some fresh content. Well, not really fresh, but like,
Well, to
you
be
know.
fair, it is pretty much fresh considering that in Mario Kart Tour, you could only play the tracks in certain tours, which are 2 weeks. So a lot of city tracks wouldn't appear for months. But actually having them here where you can play them at all times is just excellent. And with the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, I think this has been quite the redemption arc. And I'm actually very happy about it, which I was not expecting, but yeah, I think this was definitely a positive aspect. And when it comes to Mario Kart 9, I will always think that an ideal solution or just situation would be a true Mario Kart 9, like the Ultimate Mario Kart. But I feel like with this, if they're gonna do a new Mario Kart on the next Switch, and they really want to put the most resources into that, I think I'd be okay with that, because what we're getting here is still of high quality. I'm just hoping we get those characters, but we're definitely gonna get into the
So,
negatives. But before we do, there is one other saving grace, and this has to do with another circular gluttonous game character. Pac is back! That has been great!
yeah, he's actually been back. We had
Not the Ghostly Adventures
actually,
imposter.
we had actually two Pac-Man games this year. I'm a little bit more critical on the first one, but the second one was a huge surprise for me in the Partner Showcase Direct.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that partner showcase up because that was the best direct of the year. But
It was.
I think we'll start off with the first game being Pac-Man Museum Plus, and I thought it was a great collection, and the retrospective of it was very fun to do considering Soshi the Yoshi was there. And overall, I did have some gripes with the collection. There weren't many options and such, but and the emulation could be spotty, but it wasn't ever enough for me to be deterred from the collection, and it's been one of my go-to Switch games for the year. I know that it definitely could have been better, but for what it is, and just considering that you're getting 14 Pac-Man games at $30 if you're going physical at the absolute most, I think it's quite the deal, and I'm very satisfied with it. And seeing the Pac-Man world designs back was awesome. And little did we know it actually lead up to something grander.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was speculation beforehand that the models being used in the hub world, the arcade hub. I think I remember telling you, I was like, like all these models like have been created just for this collection. And I also do have my gripes with Pac-Man Museum Plus. I mean, I I love playing arcade Pac-Man, and I've been really getting into it more. I really want to try and get into it competitively, and there's just like a very distinct feel of not only the way Pac-Man controls in the arcade, but like the snappiness of his controls, and I don't get that in Museum Plus with any of the games. There seems to be a lot of like input delay, and they did fix it in future updates, but it's not enough to the point where it feels perfect. I also am not a big fan of like the borders. I mean, there has to be ways. I mean, M2 has figured out a way to, well, maybe not with the arcade games, but I mean, I feel like there's a way that you could make the screen a little bit bigger without sacrificing the image to look too small. I'm talking about the arcade games mostly, but also it was a little lazy that Pack in Time, like they literally got the Japanese version, then put subtitles over it. That was really weird. The
Oddly
Miss
enough, that would
Pac-Man
take more effort
situation,
than actually just putting on Pack in Time because there's a North American
yeah,
version. So that was baffling.
I mean, I'm guessing why they did it is because they changed the sprites in that ROM, and they probably started with the Japanese version because these developers are Japanese. And, I guess because it was the Japanese ROM and they didn't have the English language to switch over to, that's probably why they put the subtitles over. That's what my guess is.
And like
But
you were saying, the Miss
um
Pac-Man stuff too.
yeah, the Miss Pac-Man stuff really sucks, and I think that's the main reason why we didn't get Pac-Man 2 on the collection, which would have been really nice since it was on the Wii U Virtual Console, but a little while ago. But you know, like Demeech said, for $30 and a lot of Pac-Man games, it's a pretty decent collection. Um, I just don't like the current situation with Miss Pac-Man. Like, we should have Miss Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, heck, even throw in Baby Pac-Man and Professor Pac-Man for preservation,
That's what I like to hear.
But yeah, I mean, do I like Professor Pac-Man? No, but like, just have it in there for preservation's sake. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree
know.
with you there.
Uh,
But I
yeah.
will say that, yeah, the collection, it definitely did feel kind of half-assed in certain aspects, but the negatives of that weren't enough for me to deter me from playing the game and just overall recommending the collection, because I do feel like it's overall a
Oh
great
yeah.
collection despite its flaws. But one game that I can recommend with next to no strings is Pac-Man World Repack. This has been one of my favorite games of the year. It's one of the few games I've actually 100%ed in quite some time, and I was surprised to see Pac-Man back. I was more surprised to see Pac-Man World back, and they did a great job with the remake. They added in quality of life improvements, visually looks great. The music, oddly enough, they had like a compressed soundtrack until recently. I don't think it was okay to launch the game with the soundtrack it did, but even so, like I always say, it just comes down to whether or not the cons weigh down the experience too much, and it didn't. But now that we have the soundtrack with the new remastered music, I'm very happy with how the remake turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I beat the game over like 5 times. I think I told you. I think like you were the one telling me, so you beat Pac-Man World again this week? I would go like, "Yep." I would literally start a new file because I enjoyed it so much. Um, yeah, it has to be like one of my highlights of the year, just because like I wasn't expecting a remake of the game to happen, and the original Pac-Man World definitely is more jank than you remember, so. This remake fixes a lot of the kinks that the original had. I love the inclusion of Mega Pac-Man. It's really fun. I love the flutter jump. I know like people think it's inconsequential, but I think it's a really useful move. I love the the some of the boss fights, not all of them, but like the Galaxian boss fight, the King Galaxian boss fight. I love the final world. The music is awesome. It's great. It's really, really great, and it's really fun. And what I like about it the most is that it still keeps the spirit of Pac-Man while translating it into a new dimension. But they also, the people who remade the game now, Pro, um, really did a great job of adding a new coat of paint. So, like for example, Talkman looks awesome. He looks like way better than the original design, in my opinion, of course.
I would love if they made a
Um,
figure of him, because they had the Pac-Man Shokogen, but why not
yeah,
have it be a Talkman one? I think the figure
that's what
still
I'm
looks great, but
saying.
still. I just hope that this means we're
Yeah.
getting more Pac-Man games. A remake of World 2, especially World 3, would be nice, but I'm hoping we
Oh
see some
yeah.
new Pac-Man games. And considering they have the 3D models for a perfectly circular Pac-Man, we could get a new Pac-Man pinball! Not in all seriousness, I'm
I
hoping
mean,
for more of the World Series.
I'm hoping that too, and I'm hoping that they figure out this Miss Pac-Man nonsense so that we could get a remake of Maze Madness. I think that's in my opinion, I think that's just as good as Pac-Man World 1.
Yeah, I would say that Pac-Mom Maze Madness does not have the same ring, but I think that honestly, well, there's one more game that was definitely a highlight for me. I know it's not for you, so try to keep this a little bit brief.
Oh,
Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope was a huge surprise in many ways because, for one, I did not expect to get a sequel. Two, the sequel itself, oh my goodness, everything about the game. I love everything about it. So what it does is it's more like a regular RPG where you're exploring these big locations, very similar to Odyssey Kingdoms, that each have different themes. The first world, Beacon Beach, is actually based on the islands in Greece, part of Cyclades. Santorini is what it's based on, and considering I love Greece and family and culture is there, it's always just a treat to see it there. But that is not the main reason why I love the game. Everything from the characters, the gameplay, the presentation, words cannot describe how much I love this game. And I feel like if this was the de facto Mario RPG series, which it is now, I'd be fine with that. And, you know, like I always say, I'm gonna need to do a full retrospective of it to give the game the justice it deserves. But I'm so happy that it won the Best Strategy Game at the Game Awards, and I feel like this game really hasn't gotten the attention or love it deserves. I don't hear much talk about it, and it seems like other games overshadowed it. It really needed a bit more marketing, but I'll do my part once I do the retrospective. I'm aiming to get it out in December, so before the year wraps up. So, you know, with that game specifically, I've put in over 70 hours. I've played a lot of it, and everything about it, like I said, it's just so much fun. You have so many cool characters. The Rabbid versions of the characters are great as always. Even stuff like Bowser's Rabbid Mega Koopas. I think that was hilarious and just so funny. You can't modify existing Mario characters. Yeah, okay. And, you know, just overall, between that and Kirby, both were just amazing experiences. And I will say, I do prefer platformers, but I would say that Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope is easily my favorite Mario RPG, one of my favorite Switch games, and one of my favorite Mario games. Because it is just, it's incredible. And I know you don't like the Rabbids, but would you ever consider trying it out?
No. Now moving on to
Oh, come on.
to stuff that does matter. Switch Sports and another sports game. No, in all seriousness, maybe I'll try it one day, but I really didn't like Kingdom Battle that much.
I think that
So
it
it's not
improved
on the
upon
top of my
Kingdom
priority
Battle
list.
in many different ways, because that game was more linear, and it definitely was on a more isometric viewpoint, just with the worlds, and just overall they felt a lot more grid-like, but the worlds here are just far more natural, and like I said, there are many cool characters, although most of them are Rabbids, so I don't know how you'd feel about that. And if you don't like the Rabbids, you are doomed!
Well, it's time to stop having fun because we got to talk about two elephants in the room.
Quit having fun. Oh man, have we seriously gotten to this point? Okay, before we get to that, no, we're gonna get to it. But there were other games released this year that were good. Xenoblade 3, I heard excellent things about, and it was a Game of the Year contender, so that is good. Splatoon 3 is a game that is good, but I really didn't feel like it added much new. I don't know why they went for a third entry. And Bayonetta 3, very good game from what I've heard. Like, the only one I played out of those is Splatoon 3, and like I said, it's good, but it definitely was not a highlight for me, and I don't understand why they felt the need to make a third Splatoon game. But with Splatoon 3, it's a good game. It's serviceable. It has content. Oh my gosh. Alright. This has been the moment that we've been gearing up towards, but I'm just gonna say it. Nintendo has put out two of their worst games this year, and I cannot believe that they actually put these out. In fact, it's not just two of them. Three, debatably. And not only is that bad, but we have a trilogy of just...
Four if you want to really count about it.
That's just including the two versions separately, but this has been a year with a lot of good. But the bad this year has been so bad that it's just overshadowed a lot of the good. Yes, Kirby was incredible. Yes, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope was incredible. But the bad games were, hands down, just awful. You've heard me talk about Nintendo Switch Sports enough, and I'll make this brief, but I still stand by the fact, well, it's not a fact because it's my opinion. A fact is that Chibi Robo Ziplash is the worst game, because you cannot have an opinion about this stuff. No, Switch Sports, it's the worst game Nintendo's ever made. The gameplay is shallow, there's no feel to the sports, it's very basic. The presentation goes for these avatars that just don't look like anything Nintendo's made, and just the way the game was handled. First, it released without even supporting the pack and accessory. We got that update in July. Then, apparently they had to revoke an update that crashed the game. So, they had to actually update the game to to fix a problem that was from an update. And they couldn't even keep their promise of having golf in the fall. They had to delay it until December. Well, actually it was November, but was it worth it? I played the golf mode, and it's not bad, but it's not particularly amazing. In fact, it only has 3 new holes, part of the, remix mode or whatever it's called. So I don't know what the hell took so long. And, that game was just a mess in general, and it definitely was one of the lowest points in Nintendo history. But nowadays, I've come to appreciate the game in a different way. I think the game is hilarious, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts on it are going to it now.
Well, the only time I actually played the game was over at a friend's house, and it was for bowling. And I remember it being one of the more boring experiences on the Switch. Just because, I don't know, nothing really seemed appealing about it. It just seemed very,
Corporate?
It seemed very soulless, compared to Wii Sports. I mean, the Wii Sports games, I'm not a big fan of those either, but you could tell there's some sort of, odd charm about them, to those games.
Oh, definitely. And that's even in Wii Sports Club, which is one of the weakest entries in the Wii series of games.
Yeah, and I think this is the least, for me, I feel like this is, well,
and to be
I think it's
fair,
debatable, but, yeah.
I think I'm the only one who has had such an animosity towards Switch Sports because it seems to be very much a me thing where, quite literally because the me's aren't in the spotlight, but, I've wanted a Wii Sports successor for many years. It's a series that's very near and dear to me, and to see the successor that we've been waiting for just be this soulish cash grab that has nothing to do with Wii Sports and just uses the name to cash in on it, it didn't sit well with me, and I didn't like the game.
Well, how would you feel if Nintendo did that within another month?
I couldn't even imagine that. You know why I don't need to imagine that? Because it happened. But the thing with Switch Sports is that it's an absolute freaking disaster. Let's think about it. Wii Sports released in November 2006. That was it. Let's see the timeline for Switch Sports. Okay, we get the announcement in the Direct. They announced that they can't even get the pack-in accessory working. Okay. Golf's not coming until the fall. So then the game releases in April. Then we get the leg strap update. Then it's announced that golf won't be available in the fall because they need to delay it because I don't know what Nintendo is doing. Then that update they had to revoke, and then we get golf in the span of 7 months. It's just like, oh my gosh. And I don't even know if they're adding more sports, but this practice just does not work.
And it doesn't stop.
At least I can find Switch Sports funny. If you think about it, it's like watching Patrick when he's working on the stable, when he has the plank on his head, he's trying to get into the building. That's exactly what Switch Sports looks like to me. It's just Nintendo flopping around like a fish over and over again. But the next game just literally pisses me off, even to this day. Not only did Nintendo release Switch Sports, which is their worst game, but they released another game that had very similar issues, and I would say that it's very close to being the worst game Nintendo's put out, in the sense of just how much it angers me. I will say that Paper Mario Sticker Star is just worse because it's monotonous and there's not much fun about it. There is still fun here, but with Switch Sports, at least there's some dumb fun, and I think it's funny. And there is something I wanted to bring up about that game. I've been told that game went through development hell, where it went through different cycles. It was developed initially in 2018, then they had to restart the project. Okay, it sucks that it went through development hell, but that doesn't change the fact that they released the game in this state. It doesn't excuse it. And I'm just so sick and tired of seeing excuses for Nintendo where these people who are consumers are acting like they're investors or they're stakeholders, and they care about what's best for the business, no matter how the quality of the products are. Because, let's face it, we are the consumers. We buy Nintendo games because we expect them to be of high quality and fun games. And I think that just the breaking point for me was with the next game, Mario Strikers Battle League.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there's a lot of brand loyalty for some reason with a lot of fans I see on online. And
Well,
uh,
obviously Twitter.
yeah, I mean it's just like I don't understand why criticism isn't welcome anymore. It's like the fans have become the investors almost. Like they have a stock in the game. So if you say something bad, they'll defend it to no end. And I mean, you could have an opinion on a game, but you know,
Once you go about
you don't have
defending
to.
it like rampantly, that's where it becomes weird. And I feel like the reason why a lot of people do that is because, a lot of the time these are introverts who get very defensive about the game, and gaming can be a solitary hobby, and it can create experiences that are very close to people. So when they hear criticism of Nintendo, they can't separate that and think it's criticism towards them, which is when we get a lot of the
Yeah,
defense where we hear a lot of stuff like, no, 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 guys, Nintendo's not releasing unfinished games, they're just incomplete. And yeah, it's hilarious looking back, but it's also just sad seeing the desperation that fans are doing just to defend a corporation that doesn't care about them. And just talking about Mario Strikers, I'm curious to know what your thoughts on the game were, because my thoughts are quite obvious, but I'd just like to hear what you think.
I didn't care.
Even with
I
everything
did.
going on, did you expect it?
Yeah. I mean, when it was announced, I was like, oh, Mario Strikers. Yeah, I know people will be excited about this.
And
And the reason why was because, well, Nintendo has had a history with Mario sports games. And I remember actually saying, like, this looks pretty good, and this is next level games. Like,
well, I thought that as
I don't
well.
think that, yeah, and I was like, I don't think free updates will be a thing. But you were the one on the fence. You were like, I mean, it looks good, but I don't know. It looks a little unfinished. And I was like, well, Luigi's Mansion 3 looked like that too, and then that came out amazing. So let's see what happens.
I think this was much more
What?
than just a graphical scale, but I think in May, when Nintendo had their second trailer that revealed like nothing, that's when there were the warning signs what was about to come. But yeah,
Yeah.
I was able to predict that it would launch in the way that it did. I didn't want it to, but a lot of people were saying that, oh, he's saying the game's ruined because free updates were announced, and I mean, I hate to say I was right, but I was right, unfortunately, and with that game specifically, like I said, it pisses me off more than it's not even something I can laugh about like Switch Sports. I mean, Switch Sports also has a goofy looking sports mates, which I think look funny, especially with the quote, it's not your opinion that you can walk through walls, you can't walk through walls. Just like you can't say these characters look good, they don't look good, they look like crap. I think or I'm just gonna break down Mario Strikers, everything wrong with it. The core gameplay is good, but that's it. And going back to Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube, which has similar issues, the gameplay there at least is faster paced and it's better. Going back to Mario Strikers, I don't know what I saw in the gameplay that made me think, okay, this is a lot of fun and could potentially hold the game, because it really doesn't. And with gameplay, and it's also a little bit complicated to learn with the controls, there are a lot of tutorials. So looking at the gameplay, with the gameplay being fun, but not as good as Charged or even Super Mario Strikers, and this is coming from a guy who wasn't even that much into Strikers anyway, then what you're left with is the most shallow experience I think I've ever experienced in a modern game. You could count stuff like 80s arcade games like Pac-Man, but you have literally seen everything the game has to offer within 2 minutes at the most, or unless you're looking at the other characters and stuff. But here's the thing, the other characters, yeah, they have different stats. You can change them with gear and stuff. But there's really no difference between them other than the animations and just the way they look. The stadiums aren't even different gameplay-wise. And they don't even look that different, visually. I will say that the stadiums in Super Mario Strikers didn't have different aspects. They didn't have gimmicks or anything. But at the very least, they looked visually distinctly different. And they were themed around Mario games. But here, they're vaguely themed, but you can only see them in the cutscenes. And overall, you're left with literally, like, now 16 characters since they added Birdo and Bowser Jr. You're left with 8 stadiums, I believe, that don't even play differently. It's like if Mario Kart only had one track and 16 characters. And I despise the game. I cannot
Yeah.
believe Nintendo put it out. It literally is just appalling that they would have the audacity to charge $60 for something like that. And I feel like a lot of the discourse surrounding that game just increases my animosity towards the game, because like you were saying with the defense of Nintendo, this is a case where I just don't understand why people felt the need to defend something that is so clearly, blatantly an unfinished, rushed product. And I've talked about the game a lot. Yeah, I'm willing to admit that maybe it is a downright obsession, but you gotta keep in mind, the reason why it's been persisting throughout the channel is because the issue's been persisting. This is just, we had 2 games in a row, Switch Sports and Mario Strikers. But the thing is, when I did my review of Mario Strikers Battle League, there was discourse surrounding it. There were people saying that it was like an unfocused rant about free updates and not about Strikers itself. And then there was obviously the talk about the ending segment, which, by the way, obviously that is meant to be something that is kind of cheesy, kind of going for the YouTube poop Newgrounds style, yet so many people are taking it seriously. I feel like a lot of the reason why people are defending this game is because they do either like the game or they're in denial about the game, where they think, okay, it's crap, but I don't want to admit it's crap. And when I'm criticizing a game, I'm not criticizing you. I'm criticizing the game itself. Criticism, as proven with the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, is a good thing, because being transparent with developers and developers listening to it, it could result in better quality products. And the criticism with this game is it's the absolute bottom of the barrel. There's nothing to it. And I will say the gameplay is better than Ultra Smash, but those 2 games are just very similar in terms of them having nothing to do. And it's just, first of all, it sucks because the practice sucks with Nintendo releasing unfinished games. But this has been a game people have wanted for so many years, and for it to just be butt-ass when it released, just for it to be a crappy game, just beyond crappy actually, it just sucked that it was a revival of a beloved series that people have wanted for years.
Well then, looks like you had a lot to say about that.
Oh man. And the updates? What did they include? Like I said, nothing. So the game itself, now that we know it's the final update, this is it. And I can say that nothing was fixed. The online is dead. They actually had to release a demo for it because it wasn't selling. And I feel like this game specifically just really decreased my interest in Nintendo, seeing that they're capable of releasing something like this. I don't know if it's going to happen again, but the fact that it happened twice with Nintendo Switch Sports before, it's just unbelievable and incredibly just disappointing and just sad to see. Now, which one is worse? I did have fun with Mario Strikers Battle League, so I would say that Switch Sports is worse, but I will say that by far Battle League is more pathetic, and that's comparing it to the game that needed golf to have a delay. Like I said, Mario Strikers Battle League was the breaking point for me with Nintendo, where they just kind of lost me as a fan. It's going to take a lot for them to just bring me back and have me be fully on the hype train like I've mostly been. But like I said, there are things I'm excited for. I have found good games, but I'm kind of at the state where they release good games, I'm excited to play them, but I'm just like, I'm not expecting much. And I feel like the good way to start this is with the recent Direct. Farming Simulator, Faith Farm, JRPGs. Here's the thing. I understand that JRPGs have their place and everything. It's not so much about the JRPGs. Nintendo had literally nothing to show except for Pikmin 4 and giving Zelda a release date and name and revealing the Kirby remake. And as funny as that Farm Direct was, it just really goes to showcase that, you know, I feel like we're at a point where things are really slowing down for the Switch and their priorities are elsewhere, specifically with a certain movie. And no, not Dimitri the movie.
The Super Mario Brothers movie. You have had some pretty negative opinions on it thus far. I know there are some things that you like about it, but almost all the discussions I've had with you have been, I don't like this. I want a Mario game. So let's talk about your history with the Mario movie, because I think it's gonna be pretty good. I know why you're not excited for it, but why don't you explain why?
Well, to be honest, I am excited for it to some extent. I will never like that Chris Pratt is Mario because he's not. It's just not Mario. It's Times Square mascot and Mario characters a movie. Because all the other characters are on par, and I feel a lot of that just has to do with Mario not sounding like Mario. That is the main problem I have with it. But the other problem is that I feel like this movie is going to have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Syndrome, where this is all Nintendo focuses on and all Nintendo talks about for months on end. And, you know, I understand it's exciting because I'm excited for the movie. I think that other than Mario, everything looks great. But, you know, like I said, I primarily like Nintendo because of games, and we're at a point where we don't even know about an upcoming Mario game. No spin-offs, literally nothing. And I will say that I am more positive towards the movie now because it's clearly a passion project and not just some cash grab on the Mario name. And I do think it's going to be a good movie, but you know, like I always say, I play Nintendo and like Nintendo primarily for games, and things are slowing down. And it just seems like for now the movie is going to be the main priority, which I've accepted, and it is exciting, but you know, at the same time, I do feel like this would be a good time to bring up just how do we think 2023 is going to be for the Switch? Because we've had discussion about it. I talked to Uncle Al about it, and I'm just going to say that I think that 2023 for the Nintendo Switch will be the 2016 to the Wii U, where it's very much a lighter year, where it's a sort of transition year into the new hardware. Whether or not we get the new hardware next year or in 2024, I'm not sure, but I feel like that Farm Direct really just solidified that maybe this is it for the Switch.
You know, I would agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that Super Nintendo World in Florida, is it next year that it's opening? Or is it 2024?
I believe
I think it's next year, right? Oh, 2024, okay. Well, I think the fact that the Mario movie is coming out next year, and the theme park is right around the corner, I feel like there might be a new Mario game, 2D, spin-off, I don't know. But beyond that, I think the major heavy hitters are going to be 2024. The fact that Pikmin is one of the big titles coming out next year, I think tells me that the big IPs are shifting over to whatever the new Switch is. You know, and that's fine. I mean, we got Tears of the Kingdom next year too. But you know, I don't think that's going to be exclusively a Switch game for long either.
Here's the thing. I think that the generation of gaming now is a little bit different, where new hardware, it's mainly just like an upgrade, because there are a lot of PS4 games that are enhanced for the PS5, Xbox One on Series X, and I feel like that would probably be the route that they would go in with the new console. But
that's what I'm thinking too.
The reason why I'm thinking it's a transition year next year is because, like, there's literally nothing except for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is going to be a massive game, no denying that. And then Pikmin 4, which I would love for it to be one of the heavy hitters. I would love for it to be one of Nintendo's most popular series, but it just isn't. That's just the reality of it. And, you know, I feel like with next year, we're probably going to start to see the Switch winding down, and I feel like this really doesn't have much to do with the hardware itself, but just that the Switch itself has reached a point where it's sort of plateaued, whatever the pronunciation is, in sales, where, you know, everyone who has a Switch, they pretty much have one at this point.
The one game I will predict for next year, just because it's been teased by the creator himself, I think we're going to get a Kid Icarus Uprising HD remake for the Switch next year. That's going to be my only prediction that I think is actually going to happen. Because, honestly, if I say Donkey Kong, it's not going to happen.
Oh, so you don't want Kid Icarus to happen?
I mean, I do, but I feel like that's more likely than Donkey Kong. Every year we ask for Donkey Kong, and then it doesn't happen. You know?
Well, I think it's more likely with the Mario movie, because they have all the Kongs. Nintendo is preparing to make some NFTs, and all of them are the Kongs.
It could be, but at the same time, like you said, Super Nintendo World isn't opening until 2024. So they could just wait till then, as well as like the 2D Mario game. But at the same time, I can't see Nintendo not releasing anything. I can't see Nintendo not releasing a new Mario game around the time of the Mario movie. I mean, a 2D Mario around the same time as the Mario movie, that's just perfect.
A 3D would be even better, but this is Nintendo we're talking about. What they could end up doing is something like Kong DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where it would include the Kongs as characters.
They could do that too.
Oh, I would love that so much. I think that would be amazing. But I definitely do want a new game. I think we might probably get a Mario game next year. We usually get a Mario game, spin-off or mainline, every year or so. Even in years like 2016, we did get Mario games. That was a lighter year for Nintendo. And, you know, with that being said, just everything about the Switch in general, I didn't even think about the Kid Icarus thing because, yeah, I know Sakurai did talk about it on his YouTube channel. And with Sakurai's comments and such, sometimes I'll just say, oh, it's just a coincidence. Like the purple and yellow chairs referencing Wario and Waluigi. I don't know if you remember that. But if he's saying, would be nice to play it on a console, I think that something definitely could happen there. I just don't pay attention to any of the rumors or leaks or anything. Because they're all a bunch of doo-doo.
Yeah.
It's just Jeffy wanting to get attention. Oh, Metroid Prime remakes. If he gets it enough, he might become a credible insider. I don't know why people take that stuff seriously. But other than Zelda, Pikmin, and maybe Kid Icarus, I'm expecting the year to slow down quite a bit. And I'm thinking that, you know, this will be when Nintendo is gearing up to release their new system. Because like I said, pretty much everyone who has a Switch owns a Switch. They can definitely carry it on with new new software, maybe some DLC for existing games, but I don't think we're going to get many heavy hitters next year, which I'm fine with. But do you think that with their next console, they're going to have a redemption arc? Because they've done a lot of things that have been off-putting to long-term fans. Things like the unfinished games, just their overall more anti-consumer practices, lack of virtual console, the way they've handled Smash, you know, just stuff along the lines of that.
I think it's going to be the same crap. I mean, I don't see them making a 180 like change anytime soon. I mean, it's still Furukawa in charge. Same leadership, so I don't expect anything less. We're still going to be in the dark about most things. We might just get Twitter drops of game trailers. The new Donkey Kong game might even just be a regular Twitter drop. It might not even be a Nintendo Direct thing.
They're going to have a banana emoji and then just show the new Donkey Kong game.
I mean, like, I think my biggest problem with Nintendo is that they lack really transparency.
That's a
and
huge
you never
issue.
know when a Nintendo, and you never really know when a Direct is coming. At least, like, I mean, at least like during the era before the Switch, we kind of had an idea of when Nintendo Directs would come around. I mean, I don't even know if we're gonna get a Direct in January or February.
And there was
Like,
always
they
something
could
on
just-
the pipeline because they announced stuff a little bit in
Yeah.
advance. And I think that's fine. I think that it's fine to announce some games in advance. You probably don't want to do it for too long, but I think like a year before, that's fine. But, you know, with Nintendo specifically and just what they're doing and such, yes, the sports games have been awful. But do you feel like Nintendo is declining quality when it comes to their games? Because I feel like a lot of their games are still great. A lot of people think that, oh, I say all modern Nintendo games are bad, but really it's just things like the sports games and the lack of virtual console, as well as lack of entries like Donkey Kong, over-reliance of Wii U ports, stuff like that.
I think yes and no. I think definitely their spin-offs have taken a hit. I don't know if it's because development is getting crunched down or something, or if they have like a due date to get the games out on time, but there's definitely there's cases with Tears of the Kingdom where it's been delayed for like a long time in development for such a long time that it seems like classic Nintendo where they're like polishing things up.
Funny you
But
bring
at the
that
same
up, though,
time, it's
'cause
why?
they literally just released one of their most unpolished games of all time.
Yes, we'll get to that. But you know, it's weird because they'll have a great first party like mainline game in one of their big franchises, and then you'll have something like Splatoon 3 where it doesn't really feel like a straight up sequel. It kind of feels like an expansion pass. And I'm not even somebody who plays Splatoon, but I can even notice when something doesn't look like a next iteration of something.
Oh, I definitely agree with you there.
And it's like, it's not just a Nintendo problem. I think this is a game-wide problem as well. Just rushing games out and like being unpolished. But I think Nintendo still has polish when it comes to, say, like 3D Mario games or, you know, Zelda or like their big IPs. It's just their spin-offs falter a lot because I think that they could get away with it more.
But here's the scare. That when it comes to their series like Mario and Zelda, yes, but Pokemon is another major IP. I know it's technically not developed by Nintendo and they really don't have much to do with the series outside of publishing it, but the fact that they allowed it just showcases something that I'm worried about for the future. So, we talked about Mario Strikers, we talked about Switch Sports, but I feel like this is a completely different ball game because the state that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet released in, I will say that the game does have fun aspects to it, and I like what it was going for, but it is just like downright, the performance is so bad that it can be nearly unplayable, and I have no idea how it passed certification. So the thing isn't so much about how Pokemon turned out, but do you think that Nintendo is going to get cocky? They've already gotten cocky, but you think that that could be a warning sign? I do feel like that was just probably part of the result of mismanagement with Pokemon, releasing yearly releases and not having the time to polish up the games. Pokemon has just been a completely different issue. But do you think something like that will influence next games and they'll think, oh, just because we can release a Mario game and has Mario, we can do whatever we want and it'll sell well regardless?
Well, I mean, the fact that Kit and Krista, who used to work at Nintendo, straight up say that Nintendo doesn't care about the fans, that already has me worried. Because, I know I sound like a broken record, but Mr. Iwata did put fans first. He was a businessman at the end of the day. He had to make money. But what made Iwata different from Furukawa, I don't know Furukawa that well, but I can only assume that he isn't as big of a gamer as Mr. Iwata was. He was a fan at heart. Iwata was a huge gamer. He knew what made games fun, and he wasn't perfect. The Wii U era wasn't perfect. But here's a big but. Nintendo at least felt like a community back then. Like, it didn't feel... I mean, it was pretty bad. Because, there weren't a lot of third-party games, and, there were a lot of bad things to the Wii U.
Yeah.
But I think Iwata tried his best to make it fun and informative for us, and I think he did try to listen to fans as much as possible. And, not everyone's perfect, but I do feel like when Iwata passed away, part of Nintendo passed away for me too. I mean, it's not indefinitely. I mean, Nintendo will live on forever, but I know we joke about Furukawa all the time, but he's really made the company feel soulless.
I agree with you.
I mean,
I will say that Nintendo has lost the charm, and Iwata was a big part of that. And losing Iwata definitely felt like losing Nintendo. And, with celebrities passing and such, not often will it hit home, but that really did. And, even to this day, Iwata has left a legacy that has just been incredible. And clearly there was a lot of charm and care put into Nintendo games back then. And I would say that there is still the talent now with Nintendo games. There's still the care put into them. There's still... The developers have a lot of talent. But the thing is, Nintendo is just... It's not declining because, unfortunately, of Iwata's passing. It's not because, things were better then. There are issues now that just need to be resolved because they're just not working out, and I just feel like it's bad. Not because it wasn't like it was in the past. They're bad because they're bad. Things like, obviously, like releasing Pokemon in the state that it was. I honestly could not believe that Nintendo would be capable of doing that. But do I think that's going to be the standard for the future? Probably not. You still see that there is a lot of talent with Nintendo. There's still a lot of love, charm, and passion put into their games. And I feel like next year is going to be a little more relaxed. But I definitely feel like Nintendo still will be able to manage to put out some excellent games. And, whether or not 2023 has a lot of games, I'm not sure of. But considering Pikmin 4 is going to be one of Miyamoto's passion projects, and the quality of Zelda, things are already looking good based on those two games, and I'm very confident about those. Yeah. And I feel like, if a year has 2 to 3 excellent games, I feel like oftentimes that should be enough to carry a year and make it, worthy for the system. But to wrap things up, I think it'd be interesting to just recap 2022 or 2022 and just overall, how would you rank it, and just what do you think?
Honestly, probably a 6 out of 10. I mean, the only reason it's a 6 is because I think I really enjoyed Kirby and Pac-Man world quite a lot. In terms of Nintendo, of course. Though
And we know Pac-Man's
when
third
I'm looking,
party.
yeah. But when I'm looking at first-party Nintendo games, I'm not a big Splatoon fan. I'm not a big Pokemon fan. Um,
Well, Cody knows
I
you don't
will
love
admit it,
Splatoon.
but I will admit it, and it's okay to admit it. I do like the bigger Nintendo franchises, and it's I see people online going like, you got to give the smaller franchises another chance. It's not just Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong and blah 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 blah.
Oh
That's
man.
fair enough. That is fair enough. And I do try the little games, and they just and like I've tried Splatoon before. I just can't get into it. And people also be like, "Well, replay the games that you played before." Well, I do. And I love Tropical Freeze, but I'm sick of it. I've been playing it for it's almost going to be a decade, close to a decade now.
Yeah, I
I
definitely
mean,
agree with you
I
there.
know the game by the back of my hand. I would love a new Donkey Kong experience. And yeah, I could find like an indie game that plays like Donkey Kong, but it's not going to be Donkey Kong, if you get what I mean.
Oh, I
So
totally understand it.
it's okay to want new entries in your favorite franchises, Um, and like, it's okay to like the smaller titles as well, but you shouldn't devalue what somebody is looking for uh, in video games just because it's not what you like,
And it's good you brought
I
that
mean,
up, because with
yeah,
that being said, there is an aspect to that I've noticed, and although I'm not present on Twitter anymore, I haven't been for over a year, one of the things I always see is fans of a series that is more niche, like usually stuff along the lines of Fire Emblem, Xenoblade, JRPGs, and such. They feel the need to bash people who have different preferences when it comes to games. Like, oh, you just like Scrimblow Bimblow platformers. Oh, you just like the cereal box characters. You just like those games. You just play Mario. So obviously, that's the reason why you're disappointed with Nintendo. You need to start playing Fire Emblem or Xenoblade. And just stuff like that. And first of all,
why
there
do
have been
people have to be
series
like that?
that I've tried out and they just don't click. But I don't
Yeah.
understand the need to. Being a jerk and expecting someone to try out a series because you're mean to them, that doesn't make sense. I don't know why people feel the need to be like that, but if I'm assuming, it's because series that they like aren't mainstream like Mario and Zelda, so they feel the need to shame people for preferring those more mainline series, saying, oh, all you do is play Mario. And, they just need to
Well, yeah,
realize that being a jerk about it is not going to make people want to play these games. In fact, it will have the adverse effect, and it's just rude.
exactly. And that's the problem. The problem is that they think that them insulting people who like bigger franchises will get people to play the nicher franchises. No, it's not, honestly. And there's nothing wrong with smaller franchises, but if something doesn't click for somebody, don't try and like bully them for not liking it, or don't try and bully somebody because they want something that the Switch isn't providing. I mean, it's a video game console. They're supposed to have a variety of different content. Don't you think any criticism towards that would be good for them? So, like, let's say there is a game like Mario or like Zelda and then Splatoon and stuff. Everybody wins then. It's not just one side of the argument.
And it's fair to say
Also,
that
it's not like
the JRPGs are oversaturated. Nintendo just has a lot of them, and it
yeah,
just feels like there aren't many other
yeah,
series.
and it's not like a Mario, like a new mainline Mario just came out. We've been waiting 5 years.
And we haven't
I
even gotten a
mean,
Donkey Kong
it's
game in almost a decade.
yeah, and people are like, dude, chill. Like Mario has a game like every other year. Yeah, they're unfinished spin-offs that I don't even play. I'm talking about mainline Mario. Like we have to wait half a decade for those, which is fine, but me expressing that I want to see it, I mean, it shouldn't really be an issue, especially like 2D Mario, which we haven't seen an entry in like actually 10 years,
Yeah,
going on 11.
and I remember
So,
that
I-
with Nintendo Land, he did a video talking about how Nintendo forgot about Mario with the Farm Direct, and people were giving him crap for it. But he's right. It's just like, it's been so long, so I think it's fine to want a new Mario game. And like I was saying, there's nothing wrong wanting games in series like Donkey Kong, or there are many series I want on the Switch. F-Zero, Star Fox, Rhythm Heaven, especially Rhythm Heaven, a new Punch-Out.
Yeah.
Just, there are so many games I want, and a lot are in smaller series. But like you were saying, these are a lot of people just feel the need to bash people for wanting games like Donkey Kong and Mario. Because, oh, all you play is Mario, or just stuff like that. Look, the thing is, if you bully people into, just saying, well, you like stinks, you should play what I'm playing, because you clearly don't play any other games besides Mario. Like I said, it's not going to make people want to play the games. And another thing, just the overall discourse and, just the Nintendo community as recently, it's just been extremely exhausting. And the thing is, oftentimes I will just say how I feel about a game. There are times where I make memes about it and stuff, like I made a satire Miyamoto post, and of course everyone on the Bluebird Circus was going nuts. I see oftentimes what happens is they'll find something like, this one guy was saying something along the lines of, I was disappointed about the Farm Direct, and he was saying, God, this guy is so pretentious. And no, you haven't waited nearly a year either. Look, Nintendo is a billion-dollar corporation, and they make games that we love to see, and they have many franchises that we love. We criticize because we care, and you defending the corporation despite the mountain of evidence that Nintendo does not care what fans think, and they're going to do their own thing, regardless of what fans want when it comes to in terms of a Direct. If they don't want to do a Direct, they won't do one. Regardless that Nintendo doesn't care about what fans are saying and that they won't necessarily listen, and despite so much indication, they still shill. They still shill.
Yep.
And it's just unbelievable.
Well, I think overall, 2022 for me, in terms of Nintendo, was a dud, but it's not really that big of a deal because, there were some good things. I do like the Mario movie, but that comes out next year. But, I don't know. There isn't really anything for me to look forward to in terms of, first-party Nintendo stuff. I'm not a guy who buys Nintendo consoles for third-party stuff. That's just not me. So yeah, I do think first party's lacking, but to end it off here, I do think we are in a transitionary era where we are getting to the next Switch console, whatever it's called. I think it will have 4K and hopefully aim for 60 frames, but maybe not like true 4K, but
regardless, I think a more
hopefully
powerful console would be nice. And I think
it's
just
and
expected.
I'm hoping. Yeah, and I'm just hoping within 2023 to 2024 we can see those big franchises again.
And I'm hoping
just because it's been a while. It's okay to want a new 3D Mario game again, but anyways, I think I've said what I had to say about this year in review.
And I think you summarized a lot of how I felt as well. If I were to rate 2022 as a year, I would say there are a lot of good aspects, but the bad aspects were easily some of the lowest points in Nintendo history. But even with that being said, it wasn't a bad year. I think it was just okay. It could have been good if it wasn't for just the bad things like the Farm Direct and the sports games and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But, I'm just, like I said, I'm at a point where Nintendo, if they release games that I want to play, I'll be excited. I'll always love Nintendo games, considering that there are so many in their extensive backlog, and I'm hoping that they have a virtual console. But I'm not holding my breath. I do think that we are in a transitionary period. And, with that being said, I'm curious to see what's in store for the future of Nintendo. And I really hope that they took the criticisms into account. We criticize because we care and we just want to see Nintendo be the very best like no one ever was. And that includes Pokemon. And things are looking pretty good with the Mario movie. Zelda is looking great. Pikmin 4 is going to be amazing. So things already are looking pretty nice. I think we've covered pretty much everything, but if I had some final thoughts, you guys, go play Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope. You will have one of the best experiences on the Switch and in the Mario series. And I know you might not expect it from a Mario & Rabbids game, but trust me guys, the game is incredible. So in the meantime, I think I'm going to continue 100%ing it, because I'm still playing it, and I'm having so much fun doing so.
Yeah.
But
that sounds great.
think that about
Here's to
wraps it up.
2023.
Here's to 2023. And hoping that we are not doomed for an unfinished Mario baseball game. But I don't think we will be. Anyways, that about wraps things up. I'm Demeech.
And I'm TND.
And keep calm and da-da on.